Welcome to Scrambled, your space for fertility, owning your 30s, and the scramble that makes it all worth it. Okay, welcome back, everyone. On this week's episode, we have Jamie Babin, someone I've been lucky enough to call a friend for years. We've known each other since we were young girls in our teens, and watching her journey into motherhood has been nothing short of powerful. Today, Jamie is sharing the honest trials and tribulations it took to build her family and the road that ultimately led her to her newborn baby girl. We're so grateful that she's using our platform to open up, share her story, and hopefully remind other women that even the hardest journeys can lead to something incredibly beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
It's so nice to have you. I mean, I don't personally know you, but I've heard things from Alyssa about
I've been
how
talking about this one for a while.
amazing you are and how maybe like non-conventional your experience has been. So thank you for choosing to share it with us.
Oh my God, of course. I think it's probably a universal theme that you hear from all of your guests, but the loneliness and isolation that I felt over the years of going through this, thinking I was the only one as like friends and family around me was getting pregnant was just like crippling. So I've sort of made it my mission to just be as open and honest about what I went through, hoping that like if it just helps one person, then great. If it helps more, then awesome. But so happy to be here and share.
Yeah, I think you will be surprised how many people you will be able to reach by just being willing to share your story, because you, as much as you felt it, you weren't alone. And at least now there's ways for people to find resources to realize other people go through a hard time as well. So thank you for being willing to be a voice to all of that.
Of course. And I think, my story is not for the faint of heart. It's like everything that could go wrong went wrong, but it has a happy ending. My beautiful little girl Shiloh turned 1 on January 9th, which is crazy.
Aww,
so it ended. Thank you. And she is the light of my life. And we worked so hard to have her. So
if you're happy, take us from like the start, deciding to become a parent to now being a parent of a 1-year-old and everything that happened in between.
Oof, so how much time do you have? Okay, so I am married to the most amazing man ever. I met him in college. We've been together now for 12 years, which is crazy. We got married 2 weeks before the pandemic, February 29th. It was a leap year, 2020. We were the first of our friends to get married. We were 26 when we got married. Kids were not in our heads. We wanted to enjoy our lives, and it was COVID. It was just craziness. So I was still on birth control. I had been on birth control since I was 15, actually, because I was diagnosed at a very young age with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I had excruciating cyst ruptures as a teen. My periods were always super irregular all the time. And so I just been on the pill throughout my life.
And your periods were irregular even with the use of the pill?
From the start, I think my first period I had when I was 12, and then it was every 6 months or 2 in a row and then never. And then when I was on the pill, I basically stopped getting my period. And the doctors at the time were sort of advising me to just skip those placebo pills. And it was too painful and excruciating for me, and just, you're fine. It's fine. And I was okay, naive, didn't care, whatever. So about a year after we got married, I decided to go off the pill, not because I was ready to necessarily have a child, but because I just wanted to get my period back. And I'd been hearing stories of women who just weren't getting their periods back. And so I didn't get my period back. Shocker there. It was month after month. And I was okay, it'll happen. It'll be fine. But it just wasn't happening. At that point, I turned to everything you've seen on Instagram and have read, which is all the holistic stuff. And I have told this to Alyssa before. There's a place for that. I think it's a beautiful world. I think functional medicine is amazing. Unfortunately, none of it worked for me. So I tried all of the acupunctures, all of the supplements, all of the ear seeding, everything. Literally everything I tried. I'm a very scientific person, so I just kind of threw out data and was I'm here to try anything. Nothing worked. I did not get my period back. It was a year. I went to my doctor, who sort of was this can happen. You have PCOS. You also have endometriosis. Fun fact, I do also have endometriosis. So I had surgery for that in 2017. So it had been sort of under control, but basically my OB was go see a fertility doctor. So this was like a year after we got married, and like I was starting to get a little bit anxious about it. I was 27, almost 28 at that time. I had always pictured having a kid by like 28, 29. So I was like, okay. So we go to see a fertility doctor who, bless his heart, became like my best friend, is still my best friend. Shout out Brian Levine, CCRM, amazing doctor. He basically like looked at my profile and he was just like, good news and bad news. Good news is like, you are going to have a baby. You're going to have a beautiful family. That was the first thing he said to me. But the sort of like harder news is it's going to be hard for you to conceive naturally without intervention, just because I was not ovulating on my own at all. I wasn't getting a cycle. So to fast forward, we started down the path of IUIs, which was sort of the first step that you take. So they would induce ovulation. I took Clomid, I took Letrozole, I took everything to induce ovulation. Funny story. And this is sort of like my first experience of like what became 4 years of my life of sort of becoming a different person. I am a very like social, friendly, outgoing person. Some people listening might laugh at that, aka my sister, but I am. And I started missing everything. I missed birthdays. I missed weddings. I would make up lies. I would stay home. The bloating is out of control. My skin was horrible. I would gain like 10 pounds every cycle in water weight. I just felt and looked awful. Like, I wish I could come on here and be like, I didn't care. I fully cared. Like, I didn't look like myself. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't want to explain to everybody. I didn't want people thinking I was pregnant. Like, it was really horrible. I was at a friend's wedding in Mexico, my first letrozole cycle. And I just remember like feeling horrific, being a shell of a human. Just it was a horrible experience. And I was like, I'm just not going anymore. I'm not doing this to myself. IUIs didn't work. We kept doing IUIs and I would get sort of like a chemical pregnancy experience where the pregnancy test would turn positive, and then like a day later it'd be fainter and fainter and fainter, which is its own type of hell. Just like the horrible emotional roller coaster of that. I will remember that he's probably going to kill me for saying this, but like the doctor pulled us in one day and was like, well, we have your husband's sperm analysis back and he has A+ sperm. And I was like, great, cool. So it is all my fault. Like, awesome, sweet, like, yay. Great. Sperm health, super important. I know it's the cause of a lot of infertility, but unfortunately for us was not. His sperm was great. So he was like, unfortunately, I just think you guys need to jump to IVF.
Can I ask how many IUI cycles you did?
I don't even remember. I want to say like 4 or 5, like 4 or 5. Yeah. And it's funny because like, I'm not a doctor, but when people ask for my opinion, I'm like, skip it, go to IVF, like just skip it. Like, it doesn't work. And like, maybe there's people out there where it's worked. And I know some people like it worked, but like everyone I talk to, it doesn't, like, I don't know. I'd love to hear like the science behind like why the success rates are so low. But he was like, just skip to IVF. Like, this isn't happening. By the way, fun fact, at this point, it'd been, I don't even know how long, I still hadn't gotten a period on my own. I do now, post-pregnancy. Very exciting. Very exciting. But no, it just like wasn't coming back. The only time I bled was because it was like a withdrawal from the hormones that they were giving to me.
So they were really inducing an ovulation for you. Medically, you were not getting one naturally at all.
No. Ever. Never. It just like wasn't happening. And even with like Clomid, Letrozole, like I remember like Clomid didn't work. And then Letrozole, I had to like keep going up in my dose. Mm-hmm. And I felt off, like horrible. And so this was like the start of what dominated the end of my 20s. And I think that's the saddest part to me. It's not what I had to go through. It's just that like it really just ruined years of my life, and this just became my story for years. And I at this point was totally keeping it to myself. Like, I was not sharing this with anyone. I think like my closest friends had some sort of idea, but like other than that, it was mom. So we moved to IVF. The good news for me is because I have PCOS, I have so many eggs. So they retrieved something crazy like 44 or 46 eggs, of which tons fertilized. And we got the amazing phone call that we had 14 embryos that had passed and through. And we were just like, I remember hysterically crying. They went through genetic testing, 10 of which were genetically normal. And I was like, amazing. Like, this was a horrible year and a half, but like, we're going to get pregnant.
We're killing it at IVF.
We're killing it. Like, we're getting an A+. Like, I remember my doctor was like, you have a soccer team. And I was like, amazing. That was sort of like the first moment where I was like, okay, like deep breath, like everything's going to be okay. And so we start gearing up for our first transfer. When you do IVF and you go in for your first transfer, you're like, I'm going to get pregnant. You never think like, this isn't going to work. I don't know why. I think it's because you're just going to get pregnant.
We know exactly where you're at in your cycle. We are putting an embryo that is genetically tested, has started to hatch, doing everything it should. We're putting you on medications to make that adhere to your lining. We're putting it where it's supposed to be. What can go wrong?
Yeah. And everything was looking amazing for me. My lining was beautiful. We put in I think it was like, what is it? Like a 5-day AA embryo, like an A+ embryo. Like everything was perfect. I was at a premier fertility clinic, and so I go in for the transfer and I did like all the things, like acupuncture before, acupuncture after. I remember being nervous about like the Uber home being bumpy, like it was gonna like send the embryo out, like
oh my God.
LOL. But anyway, I was like, everything, and I was so positive, and I was just like, I'm here to get pregnant. So I got pregnant. It worked. I was like, got pregnant on the first transfer, like amazing, I'm pregnant. I just like remember just like falling to the floor and just being like so happy, and getting like the implantation bleeding, and like everything was going right. Went in for like my first appointment and everything was looking good, and they were like, well, you keep coming back like week after week. And I remember like even telling my family, and it was just like everything was like so positive and happy. I was just like so happy. I was like, this was so easy. Like I forgot that I had a 1.5 years of horrible hormones. Like, so we go in for our second appointment, and I'll never forget, I'm laying there. I have my feet in the stirrups in the most like vulnerable position a woman can possibly be in a tiny little gown. And I'm like so excited to see my baby on ultrasound. And my doctor puts the transvaginal ultrasound up, the wand up, and I know him so well. And I just knew right away, like his whole face just went blank. And he just kept looking and like searching. And I was looking at the screen and I didn't see the heartbeat. I didn't hear anything. And I just remember saying like, what's happening? What is happening? I just like remembered my husband was absolutely silent. The doctor was silent. The nurse in the corner was silent. And then my doctor just looks at me and says, I'm so sorry. Like there's no heartbeat. And like, it was just it was just brutal. Like it was just, I think I blacked out. They were like, stay in the room as long as you need. We will talk about next steps later. Just take a breath. And I think I sat there for like an hour in this cold little room crying my head off. And it's just the worst feeling. Like you can't explain it. Like you just can't explain what that feels like to go from like the happiest to just the saddest. And I think this is actually where my story starts. So I had a miscarriage, which is what happened. To this day, we don't know why. There's no explanation. My lining was perfect. The embryo was perfect. The implantation was perfect. Everything was perfect. I didn't miss a single dose, and that baby just didn't want to be here. That's what I'm telling myself. And so I didn't know this, but it takes weeks for a woman's body to expel a pregnancy sometimes. And so I wasn't having any symptoms. I wasn't having any bleeding. I was actually having symptoms of pregnancy. I was nauseous. My boobs were hurting. I was so excited about that. And so my doctor wanted us to start the medication, which is misoprostol and mifepristone, to induce a miscarriage. And I had booked my husband and I an anniversary trip that week, and it was our third wedding anniversary, and we were so excited to go, and we just decided to like still go. And so we went, and it was the worst weekend of my whole life. I remember I went for a massage, and when you fill out the form for a massage, they're like, are you pregnant? And I remember there was like a yes box and a no box, and I didn't know which one to click, and it was horrible. And so I went through a medicated miscarriage, which is an experience of itself. Obviously, I was very early on, so I'm fortunate for that. I know that some people lose pregnancies way later on, and that is a whole other horrible situation. And then it was over, and I wasn't pregnant anymore. And that was that. And there was no reason. There was no explanation. And so for about a month after that, I kept having persistent pelvic pain, which I was told was just a normal part of my body, my uterus kind of getting back to normal. But it was like continuing, and it wouldn't go away. And so finally my doctor brought me in for an ultrasound just to make sure everything was fine. And when he did the transvaginal ultrasound, he noticed that some fetal tissue had remained. So when I went through the medicated miscarriage, it didn't fully clear. And so I needed a DNC, which is an abortion, basically, procedure to clear out everything so that my uterus could get back to normal, and then I could gear up for a possible second transfer and hopefully get pregnant and keep that pregnancy. So I was like, great, like, here we go. So I had to go in for a DNC. He woke me up and was like, "Okay, everything looks good. Everything's cleared out. However, because the fetal tissue had been in there for so long, it had become necrotic, which means infected. So they put me on 2 antibiotics to clear the uterine infection that was then there. And immediately when I start the antibiotics, my stomach starts acting up. But like, I'm a Jewish woman with a Jewish stomach and like taking 2 antibiotics. And I'm like, no, of course my stomach's going to be bad. So I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm like, okay, it's fine.
And I think as women too, especially with all you had been through, we discredit our body's pain so much because it's almost normalized for
It's
women to have
normalized.
pain, especially in their abdomen.
100%. And I was like, and I remember it was like, now I'm just like talking through this. I haven't talked about this in, I don't think ever. It was like burning pain in my stomach. Like I felt like a burning hole in my stomach. And I was just like, okay, whatever, it's fine. So I remember I was home visiting my parents and I had just finished the course of antibiotics. It was a 14-day course and my stomach was terrible the whole time, but like fine, terrible. And I was out with my mom and like, again, I'm an open book, so I'm going to be clear, but like I had to run to a bathroom in town in a CVS. I come out of the bathroom and I'm like, Mom, something's like not right. I don't feel okay. Like, I think something's wrong. And she looks at me and she's like, oh my God, I'm pale as a ghost. I'm like sweating. I'm shaking. So she like rushes me home to my parents' house. And for the next 12 hours, I thought I was dying. Like, I actually was like, I am dying. I have to go to the emergency room. It was the sickest I'd ever been. I spiked in 103-degree fever, 104. I was on the bathroom floor, going to the bathroom maybe 25 times an hour. They had, luckily, my parents have a doctor who came over, checked me out, and got my history. I said I'd been on antibiotics for 2 weeks. He took one look at me and said, you have something called C. diff. And I remember being like, what? Like, how? Like, and I remember in my like delirium being like, how is this like happening to me? Like, I just want a baby. Like, I just want a baby. And he did a stool sample to confirm. He confirmed it was C. diff. I later learned by Googling, C. diff is an infection that happens when you kill all of the good bacteria in your stomach and you let the bad bacteria sort of like grow. Most common in 90 and older in hospital settings, and you can die from it. It can be fatal. And I remember reading all of this, just being like, how is this my life? Like I have to go to work on Monday. Like, how is this happening? Unfortunately, C. diff is an extremely hard infection to get rid of. I had to go on a different medication, and then for the next year of my life, I was battling C. diff. I kept having recurrences after recurrences. My fertility had to be put on pause. I could not obviously try for a transfer. There was no way my body was going to get pregnant. I ended up losing almost 30 pounds. I was a skeleton. I could only digest chicken broth, rice, poached chicken, and steamed vegetables. I was the sickest I'd ever been. I was not okay. There was talk of me getting a fecal transplant to restore the good bacteria in my gut. I found an incredible doctor at Mount Sinai who sort of helped me through my C. diff and finally cured it.
It's one of the hardest things to treat, and you probably ended up seeing an infectious disease doctor, I would assume. And I just hearing, like, when you were explaining the symptoms to me, I was like,
You
if
knew
she
exactly.
put C. diff, I'm going to lose my mind.
It was C. diff, yeah. And I was left with acute colitis, ulcerative colitis from the C. diff, and just truly like the sickest I've ever been. Hopefully will never be that sick again. So I went from like this sort of healthy-ish person trying to get pregnant to a chronically ill person dying to get pregnant and not even being able to do a transfer because I was so sick. And so that was a long period of my life, which is why my fertility journey is so long. When I got to the point where I felt almost just desperate to have a baby, I sort of begged my doctor and my husband to let me try transfer. In hindsight, looking back, like, was I at the point where I should have? Probably not, and they were right. But I just needed a baby so badly that I was like, let's go for it. So we did a transfer. It was June. It didn't stick. Better than a miscarriage. I'd take it 10 times every time over a miscarriage, but it just didn't work. So we lost an embryo. And I think it was that point where I kind of just said, like, okay, like, I'm not meant to carry a child. This is just like my ultimate sign. Like, my body is just not meant to do this. And I sort of just said to my husband, like, we have to look into surrogacy. So we started looking into surrogacy. And without sharing too much, just like I tell everyone, when you're thinking of getting married and like looking at the person that you're going to possibly marry or dating a person that you think you'll marry, like just picture the worst and hardest things that you possibly might have to go through and make sure that that's the person that you want to go through them with. Because talking about someone else carrying your child is not a conversation that is an easy one for couples. It was a really hard one for us. And I think just because we had such a strong foundation, we were able to have that conversation and work through it and ultimately begin talking to surrogacy agencies. I think surrogates are like living angels. I'm not like a super religious person, but I truly believe that women that are willing to carry children for other women is just like a God's gift to this earth. And so shout out anyone who's a surrogate or thinking of being a surrogate, like just unbelievable. And so we began a conversation. And I think the other thing was I spoke to my fertility doctor and I was like, tell me if you think I'm crazy. Can I do this? Or do you think we should be having these conversations? And he was like, I think you should be having these conversations.
Okay.
Which was a huge gut punch too. I was like, thank you. But also like, oh my God.
You confirmed what I thought.
Yeah. And so we began interviewing and talking to all these agencies and filling out all these forms that are just like the most intrusive forms, like crazy questions. And it just felt so awful, even though we were so sort of blessed to have this option on the table.
So like, how did that look for you to navigate? Did you go to these agencies on your own? Were you guided by your fertility clinic? Because I know a lot of people are going to be listening going like, what does that process look like?
Totally. Sort of a mix. Our fertility doctor gave us a few names of agencies that he really liked and respected. So we spoke to those. And then, and this is also why I share my story, I was connected to a girl that I went to college with who's older than me, who had gone through surrogacy for different reasons. And so she was unbelievable on the phone with me and sort of guided me through what it looked like. I had never known anyone who had used a surrogate. So I didn't even like have anyone to talk to about this. And I think like this is an important point in my story where I should pause and say throughout this year, 2-year, 3-year, what ended up being a 4-year journey, my 2 best friends got pregnant. My cousin's wife got pregnant. Girls around me were getting pregnant left and right. I deleted Instagram for 1.5 years. I had to get off social media. It was crushing for my soul. Every morning I'd wake up and it was another pregnancy announcement. It was just like horrible for me. I couldn't hack it. And so it was just a really hard time to sort of be happy for the people around me, which I was. Like, I genuinely was like, oh my God, of course I'm happy that my best friend is pregnant. But then I would go home and hysterically sob to my husband.
And I say to people all the time, 2 things can be true at the same time. You can be happy for those around you and you can be so sad for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have those emotions at the same time.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. It was just like this crazy feeling of like, I'm thrilled for you, but I'm so sad for myself. And keeping up appearances, like, Jesus Christ, is horrible. I mean, we'd been married for, a couple of years at that point. So like, it was a constant barrage of questions, right? Like every time I went out, are you guys going to have a kid soon? Like, are you thinking about like, guys, shut up. If you're watching this, like, stop. Like, why are you asking women these questions? Also, I have a kid now. You know how many times I get asked if I'm going to have a second? I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to have a second. I had a miracle child. Like, I'll get to that point. But like, stop asking these questions. It's insane. Also, some women don't even want kids. Like, I don't understand this whole like narrative. It's beyond me. So that's just like my soapbox and I'll stop. But like, people, please stop asking questions. And so anyway, we had signed up with a surrogacy agency finally that we felt like was sort of like the right agency for us. And they told us it was a 9-month wait.
Gosh.
And I think I just like lost it at that point. I was like, I can't, like, I need a child. Like, it's just, you get to a point where you're just desperate. Like, you just feel this overwhelming sense of desperation of like, I just want to be a mother so badly. And why is that so hard? I want to be a mother. I want to carry a child. I want to birth a child. I want to be a mom. But there was nothing I could do. So I sort of just hunkered down and threw myself into work. I had an amazing job at the time, and my work was so unbelievably supportive. And I think that's another shout out that like you learn all these lessons, but like I really worked for an office that was really walked the walk and talked the talk when it came to supporting women and their health. And I'm so grateful for that. I took a medical leave of absence for a while, and then we got an amazing call, which was maybe 4 months into the 9-month wait. And it was our person at the agency. And she said, "This is crazy, but someone just dropped out at the 11th hour. And I think this person is an amazing match for you." And I remember you get a profile. So you receive a profile and you get to read all about the surrogate and the surrogate's family. And it was like chef's kiss. Like, I couldn't believe this was happening. We shared so many like hobbies and food likes and all this stuff. And like the way she lived her life was the way I lived. It was just, I couldn't believe it. And so we were having all these meetings and sort of meeting each other. And it was at that time that my husband said to me, "Let's just try one more transfer. Let's just try one last time. And if it doesn't work, I'll shut up and we will never do another fertility treatment, and you will get your body back in body and soul and mind, and we will move on." And I at first was really reluctant. I just like couldn't picture putting myself through that again. But my doctor agreed we should try one more time. It had been almost a year at that point.
Were you feeling better at this point in like health-wise?
Yes.
Okay.
So I remember I met with my doctor telehealth when we were deciding this. We were in Colorado at the time. And he like took one look at me on camera and he was like, "Gain 10 pounds. And I was like, okay. Because it's not like a weight question. I was just malnourished. Like I genuinely, my blood work showed I was malnourished. My OB agreed. She was like, no, this isn't good." So I remember he was like, "Put on some weight, really focus on your nutrition, get your vitamin levels and your sort of like body back to where it needs to be. And then we will try one last time. But in tandem, I think you guys should still go forward with the surrogate." So we were kind of dual tracking it a little bit. And I kept joking like, "Oh, I'm going to get pregnant. We're going to have like twins. And like, they're going to be like, whatever they call them, like Irish twins or not even."
Yeah. I've seen it before in clinic. Yeah,
exactly. And so, but I also kept saying like, "This isn't going to work." I was like, "I love you, sweetie. Like, I'll try it one more time. But like, we know this isn't going to work. But like, this is my last try." And I was doing it, to be honest, I was doing it for my husband. And so it was a hilarious experience. My doctor was like, "You know what? I think we need to do a mock transfer first." And that's when like they gear you up for a transfer. You take all the hormones, you do everything like you're going to do a transfer. But at the last moment, instead of putting an embryo, they just like make sure your uterus looks good, I guess. And then they do it again the next month, but with an embryo. Everything was looking wrong. Like my lining wouldn't grow, and then it grew too fast, and then it receded. My estrogen, I went in one day for an estrogen check. By the way, you go in every single day when you're doing IVF. I was also working, taking Zoom meetings from like for years, like Zoom meetings from the waiting room was like my thing. And I remember they called me back that day and they were like, "There's been a lab error. Your estrogen dipped so low. Like this has to be a lab error. Like you need to come back in." And I was like, okay. So I come back in, they run it, and they're like, "Oh, it wasn't a lab error." And I remember laughing, and I was like, said to my husband, I was like, "My body is not meant to do this. Like clearly, like it's screaming from the rooftops, like I can't carry a child."
Yeah. And honestly, bless your doctor for saying, "Let's do a mock and just see whether your body can come to the party," because you then didn't quote unquote waste an embryo.
Right. And so everything was saying like, your body is not ready to come to this party. But then like towards the end, it started to like look pretty good. Like my lining was growing, the hormones were balancing out, everything was good. And I remember it was like 4 days or 3 days before my mock transfer. And I was sitting on the couch with my husband, and we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, "Should we just like go for it? Should we just like try a real transfer?" And I remember our doctor was so mad. He was like, "You guys are insane. Like, please follow my guidance, all the things." And then the funniest thing happened. My husband went to a party and ran into my doctor. This was 2 days before my mock transfer. And the next morning I wake up to an email. I was not at the party because I like didn't have a social life for 4 years. And the email was from my doctor, and he was like, "Let's go for it. Let's just do it." And I was like, I don't know what you guys talked about. I don't know how much alcohol was consumed, but like, great. So I was like, okay. And the whole time I was like not doing anything I had done before. I was not doing any acupuncture. I was not taking a single vitamin or supplement. I was like drinking alcohol. I'm not like an alcohol drinker, like doing like everything that you're quote not supposed to do. I show up the morning of my transfer. I'm like, LOL, here to like not get pregnant or like here to have it not work. Do the transfer, take like a bumpy ass car ride home. Don't give a shit. Like pick up heavy boxes. And it's like, truly, I was like,
You're
this
was
isn't
all
working.
fake. Nothing's working.
This is not working. And I was like, I'm using a surrogate. Like I am going to use a surrogate. I'm so blessed. Great. And I remember with my first transfer, about 6 days after the transfer, I had implantation bleeding. You get that like very pink bleeding. My second transfer that didn't stick, I didn't get that at all. And so my third transfer, the like fake transfer that wasn't supposed to happen, on day 5 or 6, I go to pee and I wiped and there was pink blood. And I just like remembered it was like the first moment where I was like, wait, what? Like, is there a possibility that this worked? And that was Shiloh. That was my baby girl. And it worked.
Oh,
And
did you take a pregnancy test?
I did on day 9. I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And but it was funny. It's, I want to like end the story on a good note, it is a good note. I had my miracle baby, but I want to tell you that I felt happy. I didn't. Like there was zero joy. I remember seeing that positive line and just being like, I actually think the first words out of my mouth were, I can't do this again. And it was the least joyful pregnancy ever. My husband and I would say miracle number 1, miracle number 2, miracle number 3. Each scan, each day, I was just like living it, getting through it. I remember when I got through first trimester and sort of like graduated from my fertility clinic, all I felt was just this like overwhelming sense of dread that I wasn't getting weekly checks anymore, right? Because then they just like sort of graduate you and they're like, you're pregnant, like go live your life.
Yeah.
Luckily I have an incredible OB who saw me way more times than she needed to just for my mental health and anxiety. But it was the saddest thing I think about a fertility journey, a tough fertility journey, is that it sucks all the joy out of pregnancy, at least for me. I hated being pregnant. I hated every single day of it. I wish I could say I was grateful because it was all I had ever wanted for 4 years. But I was like a shell of a human every single day. I think I spoke to my mom maybe like 5 times every hour. She was my rock. She's the only reason her and my sister sort of got me through that pregnancy. I was just an anxious mess until she was in my arms. And then she came out and she's in my arms and she's now in my arms all the time. And she's 1 year old and she's beautiful and perfect. And I don't know what this means for the future. I don't know if this means that my body sort of like clicked back and I'll be able to conceive without fertility treatments. I don't know if I'll be able to even conceive at all. What I do know is I'm not willing to go through multiple miscarriages again. I'm not willing to go through rounds of transfers again. I'm just not willing to do it to my body and to my marriage. And so I have my miracle baby and she is enough. I hope one day to give her a sibling. I think that I have 2 siblings and I love them so much. So like I obviously want so badly to give that to her, but I just don't know what that looks like for me. So don't ask me because don't ask me, don't ask anyone. And I don't know what the future holds, but that's sort of my story.
Yay, Shiloh.
Yay,
And
Shiloh.
she's so cute and beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
a little chunky and amazing.
She's so chunky.
Yeah, she is.
I am like jaw on the floor at your story because it's a roller coaster that you went through. I'm sure looking at her every day and being her mum is like the best feeling in the world for you now, and it's so deserved. I think what I want to say is like, I think at one point you were talking about a loss you had and you said, as many women do, like, oh, it was early for me. And I know some women have later losses. And we do that. I think women do that where they undersell their own hardship because we're kind of told to by society or we feel we need to. But don't discredit what you went through. It was really, really hard. And I'm sorry that it was
Thank
like
you.
that. I'm
Thank
just
you.
so happy that you have your girl.
Yeah. I mean, You know, I think like the one piece that I left out was the hardest decision that I think we had to make throughout these 4 years was, you know, we had matched with a surrogate and she was amazing. And then I got pregnant. And I was 6 weeks pregnant. I was 6 weeks pregnant, which is nothing. And in the world of when you've had losses, that's like fake pregnant, right? Like that's like nothing. And we had to make the decision if we were going to go ahead with the surrogate or not because she was gearing up for a transfer for us.
How long do you have like that match with your surrogate? How long does that
Not
sort of
long.
last? Okay.
Not long, because there's so many women like me who are waiting in line. And I was like, I can't be one of those women that just like strings this person along when she could be getting pregnant for someone else. And so we made the brutal decision of telling her we weren't moving forward and putting all of our faith into my pregnancy when I had had a history of loss. That was brutal. And I think it put even more pressure on me and sort of like more anxiety to make sure that the pregnancy went well. And so making that decision and really like letting go was really, really, really hard. And I think about it all the time. Like I know how old they would be today, but I like to say that Shiloh was always the one we were meant to hold first. She wasn't our first pregnancy, but she was the one that we were meant to hold first.
Well, it's the craziest story, but it ended on such a positive note. Like in the end, this is a success story.
It's hard to feel while you're in it, but you are right. It's about persevering, holding hope, and just continue to be brave. Like any person that goes through any form of difficulty conceiving is just incredible to continue to keep going. And you are proof that it can be worth it.